What is going on, guys? It is week 18 of fantasy hockey, and today we're going to be talking about a bunch of different stuff. Obviously, the teams with the best and worst schedules, the streamers to maximize your games, some new Powerplay updates, some must-add players, and also some trades that have happened in the NHL. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. Starting off, let's talk about some of these trades that happened over the week. The big one being the JT Miller trade going to the New York Rangers. Now, this definitely has fantasy hockey implications. On the Canucks, we have seen DeBrusk move up to Powerplay 1. We will see if this is permanent. Don't know how Filipino is going to factor into that, but for now, DeBrusk gets a little bit of a boost. And then with the Rangers, Miller was Powerplay 1, and also line 1 with Panarin and Zibanejad. I'm sure they're going to mix up the lines, but what was interesting was the power play to me. That's the thing that stood out. Miller being on the power play 1 every single time that there was a power play. Obviously, this is good for Miller, but they juggled the power play lines a little bit here. I believe the first time the power play 1 was out, Kreider wasn't on power play 1. So a little bit concerning for Kreider owners. But in the second time that they had the power play 1 out there, Kreider was on power play 1 and Trocheck was bumped down to power play 2. They actually scored in that power play. So a little bit concerning if you own one of Kreider or Trocheck. And actually good news for Zibanejad. I know it's only one game, but Zibanejad was on the power play 1 each and every single time. So yeah, we'll see how those power play lines shake out. Obviously, one of these players is going to be affected negatively. But in terms of JT Miller's value, I think it's gone up. Like, he wasn't happy in Vancouver. Not a good situation. And I think as long as he's getting top 6 minutes on power play 1, he's going to be really good for the rest of the year. Some other quick trades to talk about here. Mikael Granlund is now in the Dallas Stars. He has a very high roster percentage this year because he's been good. I think it's like 60-something% on Yahoo. And unfortunately, this is too high. I think he's droppable in a lot of leagues now because he's probably going to be on the third line or maybe the second line, but he's not going to be power play 1. So yeah, I just foresee his minutes going down. His minutes were super high on San Jose. He was relied on heavily because he was on the Sharks. But yeah, on the Stars, he might only average like 15, 16 minutes, not getting a lot of power play time. So yeah, not a fan of that move going to the Stars. Now, there's one more trade we had to talk about here. The Calgary Flames and the Philadelphia Flyers. Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee getting sent to the Flames. And then you had Kuzmenko and Peltier getting sent to the Flyers. Now, these players haven't been very fantasy relevant, so it's not the biggest trade in terms of fantasy implications. But we did see Farabee get moved to the top line and being on power play 2. Top line is decent for him. With Frost, he's on line 3 right now, but he was on power play 1. And he had like 17-something minutes in his first game. So he could be a sneaky add in a deeper league. And I mean, with Kuzmenko, I just can't see him operating successfully under Torts. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, wouldn't be scrambling to add Andrei Kuzmenko. I do want to mention Frost being on power play 1 has sent Igor Sharangovich down to power play 2. So definitely a negative for Sharangovich. So far, I know it's only one game. I'm sure they're going to mix things up. But yeah, we'll see what they do with those power plays because this season they've been splitting their power plays 1A, 1B, giving good usage to the second unit. We will see if they continue to do that. Before we talk about the schedule, I want to tell you guys I did 2 podcasts last week. One with Apples and Genos with Blake. You can check that out on their channel. And also the Hockey Cards Gone Show podcast. If you guys like hockey cards, definitely follow their channel. Thought it was a really good conversation. We talked about fantasy. We talked about cards. And I will be having those links in the description. I also want to give a shout out to Drafters Fantasy Sports. You guys know how big of a fan I am of this platform. I did 115 drafts heading into this year, and I have 6 teams in the top 100 out of 5,000. So we'll see how that progresses. But I want to tell you guys, you can do daily fantasy sports on this app, so you can draft teams for the slated games, potentially win hundreds of dollars in prizes. And you can also do pick'ems on the NHL, NBA, NFL, and more. If you download the app, sign up using referral code FIREDUP, and using promo code FIREDUP, you get 100% match deposit up to $100. So 20 gets you 40, 40 gets you 80, 100 gets you 200. That is bonus money to use on these pick'ems and best ball drafts. And yeah, there's more info in the comments below. I love the platform. And by the way, this is available in all of Canada, including Ontario and most US states. The Super Bowl is coming up, so if you want to do some pickups on there, gamble responsibly, you could win some money. So yeah, make sure you use promo code FIREDUP. Now let's talk about the schedule for this week. As you can see on the left side of the screen, very normal schedule. You don't have to worry about which nights are off nights and which nights are not. No, we had the typical nights as off nights: Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And then those heavy nights being Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Now, in terms of the teams of the best streaming schedule for this week, the best team is going to be the Montreal Canadiens. 4 games and 2 off nights this week. The only team that has that: Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, and Sunday. But we also have some other options as well. We have some teams with 3 games and 2 off nights: the Blackhawks, the Oilers, the Kings, the Predators, and the Rangers. And also some teams with 4 games and 1 off night, which is decent too. Those teams being the Senators, the Lightning, and the Utah Hockey Club. On the flip side, the teams with the least amount of games are the Ducks, the Sabres, the Red Wings, and the Jets. The Ducks, the Sabres, and the Red Wings having 2 games and no off nights, and the Jets having 2 games and 1 off night. Picking up players from these teams might not be the best for this week in terms of maximizing your games. And if you have a lot of players on these teams already, you might be at a disadvantage. All right, moving on, let's talk about the teams with the easiest and hardest schedule for skaters. Starting off with the easiest, we have teams with an above 2.90 opponent goals against average. Those teams being the Rangers, the Devils, the Sabres, the Blue Jackets, the Oilers, the Predators, and the Canucks. Then for the hardest, we have teams with the below 2.60 opponent goals against average for this week. Those teams being the Ducks, the Islanders, the Hurricanes, the Jets, and the Panthers. Now let's talk about some goalies, the hardest and easiest schedule for goalies. Starting with the easiest, we have teams with the below 2.85 opponent goals per game. These goalies could have a better week than they normally do. These teams include the Stars, the Leafs, the Predators, the Kraken, the Lightning, and the Edmonton Oilers. Now, for the hardest schedule this week for goalies, we have teams with an above 3.20 opponent goals per game. And these teams are the Islanders, the Utah Hockey Club, the Red Wings, and the Ottawa Senators. Now, let's talk about some streamers that you might want to pick up for this week to maximize your games. Like I said, the Canadiens had those 4 games and 2 off nights. Solid for the entire week. And obviously the streamers that you're going to want to pick up, if available, include Caulfield, Suzuki, Laine, Slafkovsky, Hudson, all those guys being Powerplay 1. Depends on your league settings as well. Slafkovsky puts up incredible hits. And then you have some deeper league options, guys like Mike Matheson, Kirby Dach, Evans, Gallagher, etc. You also have some teams with 4 games and 1 off night. Not the best for maximizing your games unless you're dropping players with only 2 games this week for players on these teams. But I thought I'd mention them. Like I said, the Senators, the Lightning, and the Utah Hockey Club have 4 games and 1 off night. And you can see on the screen that, with the Senators, guys like Drake Batherson, Jake Sanderson, Claude Giroux, Josh Norris, Thomas Chabot, Shane Pinto, etc. Could be good streaming options. With the Lightning, Brandon Hagel in a very shallow league, Anthony Cirelli, Nick Paul, Darren Radish. And then with Utah, more options here. Keller, Sergachev in a more shallow league. And then guys like Nick Schmaltz, Barrett Hayden, who are Powerplay 1 guys right now. And then some deeper league options like Ian Cole, Michael Kesselring, McBain, Krause, etc. Now, I quickly want to talk about some streaming strategies. These are going to be from teams that have 3 games and 2 off nights this week. You might not want to pick up these players for the entire week, but you can utilize their off nights to pick them up on Wednesday and drop them Saturday. This is because they play on those off nights being Wednesday and Friday, so you can maximize your games using this strategy. Now, these players are going to be coming from either the Rangers, the Kings, and the Blackhawks, who play Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, or the Oilers, who play Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Lots of players here. I'm not going to list them all off, but you can utilize a streaming strategy to potentially help you win your week. One last streaming strategy is picking up players on Monday and dropping them Saturday. And this is only going to work with Predators players because they play Monday, Friday, and Saturday. Monday and Friday being those off nights. So yeah, you could potentially pick up Predators players today if you're watching this, or on Monday to get those 2 off nights. Now let's talk about some Powerplay updates. A lot of updates to go through for this week because there was a lot of things that happened. But yeah, starting off with the Bruins, McAvoy's back. He's healthy. He's on Powerplay 1, and he scored last night as well. So could be a good sign of things to come. Hopefully he can get it going. With the Flames, they have Morgan Frost on Powerplay 1 with him getting traded there. And that means they have Kadri, Huberdeau, Frost, Coronado, and Weegar on Powerplay 1. Could be good for Frost. We'll see how that turns out. Coronado's a guy I like as a must-add player as well. Then with the Dallas Stars, we have Matt Duchene being moved up to Powerplay 1. Massive for his value if he stays there. And Jamie Benn being moved down to Powerplay 2. Bad news for Jamie Benn, but yeah, very good news for Matt Duchene. Hopefully the Stars power play can get going. It hasn't been that good this year. And we also have Thomas Harley on power play 1 with Mira Heiskanen out week to week. I don't know if this injury is season ending for Heiskanen, but he's going to be out for quite a bit. And yeah, this means Thomas Harley is a must-add defenseman. With the Red Wings, Marco Kasper has been power play 1 with Patrick Kane out, but Kane is going to be returning soon, so I wouldn't drop a player for Kasper unless you're in a very deep league or you just want him for like a game or two this week because, like I said, Patrick Kane is going to be returning soon. With the Los Angeles Kings, Drew Doughty's back, immediately put on power play 1. Brant Clark has been scratched. He played last game, but yeah, it might be over for Brant Clark at this point. LaFerriere is actually on power play 1 now, and that means Quinton Byfield is on power play 2. So that's something to watch out for as well. Then with the Minnesota Wild, Kaprizov had surgery. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks, and that means Marco Rossi is going to be power play 1 for longer. We also have with the Devils, Nico Hischier is out week to week, and they have put Andre Palat on power play 1, who actually scored, which made me very upset because they just don't want to put Timo Meier on power play 1, but that's for another video on another day. For the Islanders, Tony DeAngelo is still power play 1. He scored yesterday, and you know, he's getting a lot of minutes, so definitely a must-add defenseman. Now, I already talked about this earlier, but Miller was power play 1, and Trocheck and Kreider actually saw power play 2 at different times here in this game against Boston. So could be slightly concerning. We'll have to see what happens because somebody is going to lose a lot of fantasy value with this trade. Now with the Senators, Claude Giroux is still power play 1, even with Josh Norris back, but Norris actually left the game last game. So this sort of extends Giroux even further if Norris is out long term. So yeah, definitely good news for Giroux. With the Pittsburgh Penguins, we have Brian Rust, Michael Bunting, Rickard Rakell, Sidney Crosby, and Matt Grzelcyk on power play 1. Grzelcyk could be a good add in a deeper league. With the Tampa Bay Lightning, they're still splitting their power plays the same. With the Toronto Maple Leafs, Matthew Knies and John Tavares, they are back and healthy, and they were put on power play 1. So yeah, really good news for those guys. Obviously, Tavares wasn't going to get moved off of power play 1, but Knies being on power play 1 is big, and if he stays there, he's a line 1 power play 1 guy who puts up solid peripherals. So definitely a fan of Matthew Knies as a must-add player. Then with the Utah Hockey Club, we have Barrett Hayden on power play 1 with Logan Cooley out indefinitely. Don't know how long exactly Cooley is going to be out for. We don't have a timeline yet, but this means Barrett Hayden is line 2 power play 1, and he's been playing better as of late. So at his current roster percentage, definitely an under-roster player who has potential until Logan Cooley comes back. With the last set of power play updates here, we have Jake DeBrusk on power play 1 now with Miller traded. Definitely good for his value. With the Vegas Golden Knights, Pavel Dorofeev is still power play 1. And then with the Washington Capitals, Connor McMichael has been moved up to power play 1 and Jacob Chychrun down to power play 2. Not the best news for Chychrun, but good news for Connor McMichael. One thing I wanted to mention here, one last thing, is that the Sharks power play is going to change. Mikko Granlund is now on the Dallas Stars, and he was on power play 1 on the Sharks. So we're likely going to see someone move up, and that could be Fabian Zetterlund or maybe Will Smith. I will keep you guys updated. All right, moving on, let's talk about some new forward adds. The first player here is Matt Duchene, who is now power play 1 over Ben. Obviously, I can't predict the future. I don't know if this is going to stick, but if it does, this is a big bump for Duchene, right? Duchene has not been on power play 1 for the majority of the year, so definitely a fan of adding him. We also have Adam Fantilli still here. Like I mentioned in last week's video, Monahan had a setback. He is still out, likely for 6 to 8 weeks. And that means Fantilli is line 1 power play 1 for the foreseeable future. We also have Matthew Knies here, who is back. He's healthy and immediately put on power play 1. They are running 5 forwards on this power play. Marner's running the point. Riley is on power play 2. And yeah, I mean, this means Matthew Knies is line 1 power play 1 on a very good team. Definitely a fan. We also have Jonathan Drouin here. I just think his roster percentage is too low. He's line 1 power play 1. Just had a very good game. Certainly worth a look. We also have JJ Peterka, who just had a big game last week as well. He had a hat trick, a 4-point night. And Peterka's line 1 power play 1 with really good ice time. So I do think he's certainly worth a look because of his low roster percentage. We also have Pavel Dorofeev, who's still power play 1. Good minutes, likes to shoot the puck. Still a fan. Claude Giroux, who is power play 1 now. Norris, he's injured. We'll see how long he's out. But even when Norris was healthy in those couple of games back, Giroux was power play 1. So Giroux is going to see a fantasy bump. We also have Jake DeBrusk here, who was power play 1 with JT Miller out. JT Miller traded. And that means that DeBrusk is going to see a bump in his fantasy value. The next player here is Barrett Hayden, who is power play 1 with Logan Cooley out indefinitely. He sees a bump. We also have Mason McTavish, who's been playing better lately. Good ice time, decent power play time. He's shooting the puck. I'm liking what I'm seeing. We have Connor McMichael on the Washington Capitals, who is now power play 1 over Jacob Chychrun. Don't know if this is going to last. Maybe it's only a game or so, but he definitely sees a bump here. Next, we have Matt Coronado, who gets really good ice time. He's in the top 6. He's power play 1. Decent peripherals as well. Very low roster percentage. We have Alex Laferriere, who's back on power play 1 over Quinton Byfield. Don't know if that's going to last, but definitely good for his value. And then finally on this list, we have Andre Palat, who was line 1 power play 1 with Nico Hischier out. We also have some other players that I like as potential adds. Carter Verhaeghe, I know he's like 90% roster on Yahoo, but in some more shallow leagues, I would suggest taking a look at him because he's one of my favorite buy lows, right? His shooting percentage is half of his career rate. He's moved back up to line 1 with Barkov and Reinhart. He's power play 1. He had 9 shots last game. And yeah, I think he is going to bounce back and have a good second half. Another player I like is Brian Rust. I just think his roster percentage is too low. Similar to Troy Terry, I just think his roster percentage is too low. Nick Schmaltz, he's line 1, power play 1, playing better. Not the best peripherals, but I still like him as an ad. And then Kent Johnson, who is getting good minutes on power play 1. I think his roster percentage is too low. So he's also a player that I think is worth a look. We also have some shallow league ads. I think Natchez should be added in every single shallow league. Line 1 with McKinnon, power play 1. If you're in a very shallow league, like 4 teams or 6 teams, I would definitely take a look at him. And then also players like Dylan Larkin and Raymond, who are probably going to cool down a bit, but they're playing incredible as of late. So I would take a look as well. Then you have some deeper league ads. Yuri Kulik on the Buffalo Sabres. He's line 1 with Tage. Morgan Geekie on the Boston Bruins, who's line 1 with David Pastrnak. And also Morgan Frost, who played in his first game as a Flame last night. Didn't put up any points. He was a -2, but he's currently on power play 1, which is a good sign. And he had decent minutes. I think he had like 17 minutes and 30 seconds in his first game. So if he gets good ice time and he's on power play 1, he could be worth a look in a deeper league. Lastly on here, 2 injured players I want to talk about. Dylan Guenther, he is going to be returning soon. He's skating in a normal jersey. So if he was dropped, I would take a look at him. He is a player that is very talented. He's going to get really good minutes on power play 1. Yada, yada, yada. I'm a fan of Dylan Guenther. And then Valeri Nichushkin. Listen, guys, I know I've been telling you to add Valeri Nichushkin for months now, and he keeps having setback after setback. But we got an update that he should return after 4 Nations. So, listen, if Nichushkin is back and he's healthy, he's probably going to be power play 1 in the top 6, and he could be really good in your fantasy playoffs. Next, I just want to highlight some players that I think have too high of a roster percentage. I'm trying to do this more. I'm sure there's more players that I'm missing, but when I looked at roster percentage, these players stood out. Mikael Granlund, he's on Dallas now. Deployment's going to go down. Not a fan. Noah Hannafin, who's not power play 1. I'm not a fan at all. Like, his peripherals aren't that good. I was a fan early on when I thought he was going to be power play 1 before the season started, but they switched up to Theodore in like the last week. So yeah, I just think if you're holding on, there's better options available on the wire. You also have Morgan Riley, who's not power play 1. Without power play 1, his value is going to be pretty non-existent. Alexi Lafreniere, who probably won't get on power play 1 now with Miller traded there. Like, maybe there was potential, but now it's looking worse for him. So yeah, I think his roster percentage is too high. Unless you're in like a keeper league, he's probably droppable in a lot of leagues. Then you have Jamie Benn, who's been moved off of power play 1, so that could really take his value. Then you have Anthony Cirelli, who I just think has too high of a roster percentage. And also Brant Clark, who is now a guy who's been scratched a couple of times this week and is not power play 1. So yeah, without power play 1 and getting like 13 minutes a game, he is droppable in most leagues. Moving on to defenseman ads. The number 1 defenseman here is Thomas Harley of the Dallas Stars. He's going to have a lot of minutes. He's going to be relied on heavily with Miro Heiskanen out, and he is power play 1 now. So you have a player that has solid peripherals, going to get a lot of ice time on power play 1. Definitely a massive fan. Aaron Ekblad. Ekblad is still power play 1. He's back. He's playing better. Decent peripherals. Seth Jones, Jones, he's power play 1, decent peripherals, good ice time. Maybe in leagues with plus minus, he's not that good, but I think his roster percentage is still pretty low. Drew Doughty, who is healthy, immediately put on power play 1. Jared Spurgeon, who's healthy and is on power play 1. He may struggle, though, because without Kaprizov, the Wild are not the best team, but still, his roster percentage is pretty low. Then you have Tony DeAngelo, who is power play 1 with Noah Dobson out. He's getting a lot of ice time. He scored last game. Definitely worth a look as well. Alexander Romanov. This is a guy that is going to be a must-add player depending on your league settings, but what we're seeing right now with some of these injuries is insane ice time in elite peripherals, especially in the hit department. So if your league values shots, hits, and blocks heavily, or you're in a category league, he's definitely worth a look. Lastly, 3 more players here. Darren Radish, he's still getting good power play time because the Lightning are splitting their units, decent peripherals. So yeah, definitely worth a look. Jackson Lacombe, who's been playing better lately. Like, he had a little bit of a slump there, but he's putting up points, he's getting a lot of ice time, and he's putting up good peripherals. Lastly, we have Matt Grzelcyk here. Grzelcyk's a guy that's going to put up terrible shots, hits, and blocks, so that's something to consider, but he is still power play 1, and he's putting up points. So at his current roster percentage, I think he's under-rostered. Finally, let's talk about some goalie ads. All of these guys were in last week's video, so it's nothing new, but I still think that their roster percentage is too low based on their recent value increase. Jake Allen, Markstrom's out 4 to 6 weeks, so Allen's getting volume on a great team, playing well. Destin Wolf, who is playing great and getting a lot of volume. Elvis Merzlikins, who's playing great and getting volume. Joey Decord, Grubauer is gone, so he's getting amazing volume and he's playing good. Alex Nedeljkovic, who is getting volume with Jari gone and playing good as well. There's also one goalie here, Darcy Kemper. I just think his roster percentage is too low. Could be dead leagues. And then finally, Linus Ullmark. He's returning soon. He's joining the Sens on their upcoming road trip. So if he was dropped, I would definitely take a look at him. All right, guys, that is the end of the video. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I will catch you in the next one.